Please give us your name and affiliation as soon as you get the mic and ask your questions. We're going to take our first one over here on the right-hand side.
Andrea Adelson, ESPN.com. Jim, you've talked a lot about exposure for football with ABC and having more of those windows. With the preseason expectations for Florida State and Clemson headed into this year, how important is it, do you feel, for the ACC to be able to capitalize on some of these bigger windows with some of its marquee programs to help change the perception and the narrative of the league?
Good question, Andrea. I think for all of us, you get into the competitive ACC season and it's a little bit of a cannibalization. So your point of differentiation, I think for all conferences, ends up being the non-conference games. And so we have to get off to a really good start. It doesn't negate having a really good season if you don't, but if you stumble once or twice, it's really difficult to overcome that. So you mentioned a couple of our teams, and I think we have a whole host of others that also can have a really good season. And you know, sometimes our ranked teams act just like that and perform right off the gate in a high level. But sometimes those teams that aren't ranked or maybe at the bottom of the top 25 really start to gel. So I'm really excited about it. I've had a chance to, you know, really dig in this summer about our rosters and love our coaches as always. But I think, Andrea, with the schools you mentioned, you know, Florida State and Clemson getting a lot of opportunities, I think we have a bunch of others that can also get off to a good start and show that the league is a really, really good football league. And you know, I mentioned in my remark about the CFP, I just think sometimes it's lost because of whatever narrative's out there. We're second most in titles and appearances in the CFP, and I think that equates in modern day football to having success.
We're going to take our second question from here in the middle section, second row.
Royal Howell, Carolina Blitz. Commissioner, a year ago in this same room, you mentioned guardrails and mandating the NIL. Players seem to love it, but coaches seem to have a disgrunt about players being able to make money off their name, image, and likeness. Lane Kiffin recently mentioned college football being a complete disaster right now with the NIL. What are your thoughts on the college football as a whole, and do you think it's just a disaster to have the NIL in totality?
Yeah. I think here is where name, image, and likeness is off the track, and that is what I described about Washington, D.C. For certain, the student athletes deserve the opportunity to engage in name, image, and likeness, and I had a chance to address that group yesterday, and we've been a strong proponent of it. Where it's really difficult is these disproportionate state-by-state rules and legislation, and that's what we're trying to change. You know, I think as you look at the NCAA and the history of it, we've kind of all raised our right hand and indicated, hey, we'll follow these rules. We may not like all of them, but we'll follow them. But the current NIL legislation is so disproportionate about what you can do in one state versus another state. And I think that's part of the frustration that our coaches are faced with. And so having some kind of federal legislation that allows some opportunity for there be consistency across competition. And I say this, when you have inter and intra-state competition, you want fairness in everybody playing with the same types of rules. And so that's why Washington, D.C. and Congress has been really important, and we've made some strides. But I would also say that, you know, it's not probably ready for public consumption now. We are thinking about a plan B if we can't get help from Washington, D.C., because that's, I think, the biggest difficulty that our coaches are faced with. But it's not going away, and nor should it go away. So this isn't like the NIL at some point is not going to be around anymore. We need to continue to do it. And the final thing I'll say is I want us to continue to make sure literacy is a very important part across our campuses and within the conference, that our student athletes are understanding their opportunities, their brand, and they may engage or they may not engage, but they have that opportunity.
Take our next question in the back with our television folks.
Pete Yanity from WSPA TV in Spartanburg. Two quick ones. A year ago in this room, you were answering questions about the future of the league. You just addressed that you hear the talk about the financials. What steps maybe have been taken in the past year to have a better pathway forward for the conference. And then if I could also just have you give a synopsis as to how the CW package came together and how quickly that was all done to get where you are with that.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. I would say this, the league is healthy. It just is. And certainly there's rumblings. Again, we all saw what happened in the springtime. But the group has come together in a way, to me, that demonstrates they want to work together to find solutions. And your question about what solutions has the conference come forward with? Well, we've worked with Fishbait on our 8-point plan, generating new additional revenue. The ESPN partnership is really strong, and ESPN and the ACC are completely motivated together to generate additional dollars. You see that the conference presidents and chancellors have initiated the Success Initiative, Success Incentive Initiative, which is going to distribute dollars in a disproportionate way. We've never gone down that road before in the ACC, and I'm not sure many conferences have. And so revenue generation continues to be a priority. But let me be clear also, this league is third right now in revenue as we go forward into wherever the next TV deals are for other conferences. We've looked at it. We've had multiple TV consultants are. Third is certainly a good position, but we want to gain and gain traction financially in order to close the gap with obviously the SEC and the Big Ten, who have leapfrogged everyone. I think one of the presidents said it best. Are we chasing a dollar amount, or are we chasing success? And I think there's a difference there. If you're chasing a number, it takes you down a different path. If you're chasing success competitively in football and basketball and all of our sports, then I think every institution has an idea of what they need. So again, I feel really strongly about this league, and I think people are missing it when they're not paying attention to the results of how well the conference has done. So it will continue to be a priority, and certainly has the attention of everybody from our board on down. And then the CW relationship, listen, we've had a great relationship with our TV partners. You know, Raycom has been a wonderful partner of the ACC forever, and they were incredibly helpful along with ESPN in getting the CW. And I think all of you understand distribution and eyeballs and being able to be visible in all of the regions that our schools are, but across the country. And that was one of the things when I came almost 2.5 years ago, the frustrations that we had about, I can't find my team. I can't find some of the games. And so they came in and took the place of Bally's, who we appreciate the relationship that we have. And Raycom will produce the games, and they'll be distributed on the CW. And CW is getting into sports, et cetera. I know they have Live Golf, and that's getting a lot of attention for different reasons. But we are really excited about that. I think Dennis Miller was going to try to be here from the CW from Los Angeles. I'm not sure he's here, but if he is, maybe raise your hand, and if you have any questions later, you can kind of go over and see him. But excited about the CW.
We're going to take our next question from our left-hand side in the middle.
Hey, Commissioner, David Hood with TigerNet.com. In talking about the revenue gap versus the results and trying to find more money and working with ESPN, how do you keep the schools like Florida State, like Clemson, that have spoken out publicly, committed while trying to bridge what may be at some point a $40 million gap? And do you think that gap can be bridged, maybe not to 40 million, but hey, we can get you to within 15 million, 20 million?
I think that's the right approach to make it. Instead of trying to get to a number, try to bridge it as far as you can. And I think how you get it done, you work collaboratively. And that's what we've done. And those two institutions have been terrific to work with. I mean, they have great leadership. Rick McCullough is a wonderful guy. Jim Clemens is a wonderful guy. They love sports. They love their institutions. But I know they also love the ACC and are trying to figure a way through. But it's all of our schools, right? All of our schools are incentivized to make sure that we have as healthy of a financial portfolio as we possibly can. So after the spring, if you wouldn't, if we wouldn't have had any discussions, or we wouldn't have come out with a success incentive initiative program, I may have felt differently. But the regularity of which the board is meeting now, and the regularity of our ADs meeting, et cetera, and how good ESPN has been, they understand the volatility that there is, but they also are looking to grow financially based on some of their, recent events. So you have a lot of mutually beneficial outcomes in this thing. So staying together, working collaboratively, working strategically. And we have some other things that we're working on. I can't address with this group right now that are pretty exciting to try to address that revenue gap.
Take our next question from the back on the aisle.
Hey, Jim, David Hale with ESPN. You talked about lobbying in D.C. regarding NIL. I know some of the potential options that are out there would include a third-party government entity that would oversee this. How comfortable are you with the idea of sort of outsourcing NIL oversight to a third-party government-run organization?
Well, we got to look at all of our options. If that ends up being the best one, and everybody is, in line with that, then you have to do it. Then you have to do it. It starts to get, you start to get leakage about kind of controlling your organization and the association and making decisions when you go to Washington. So there's always some danger there. But we have to do some things differently. And so if it ends up being in that kind of structure as you described, David, then we're going to have to do it.
I'm going to take our next question. Nope, come on back up here. We're going to take our next question. Third row.
Hi, Kenton Gibbs, Locked On ACC. You talked a lot about where you are in terms of the conference and looking at growing and expanding and bridging that gap. One of the biggest fish that's out there that people constantly whisper about with the ACC, a team that's on that slate of televised games for the ACC, is Notre Dame. Is there any progress towards getting Notre Dame to join as a full member with football as well, or is that not something that's on the table at the moment?
Yeah, another really good question. We've had a lot of conversations, let me just put it bluntly, with Notre Dame, and they've been very clear. They value their independence, and I think they feel strongly that that will continue well into the future. If they ever have the desire of joining the conference, they know that we would welcome them with open arms. But I think, I can't speak for Jack right now and Pete in the future or Father John, but I think it's been a healthy relationship both ways for the ACC and for Notre Dame. Their sports, other than football, I think have thrived in the ACC. I think they really enjoy the academic prowess that the ACC brings as well. But they've been pretty clear about their desire to stay independent. So I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Next question on the other side of the aisle, midway back.
Hey, Jim, Luke Ticock, Raleigh News and Observer. Curious, you mentioned the revenue distribution and all those things. Did kind of having all of that come out at Amelia Island into the open with everybody discussing it change in your mind the sort of mood in the conference about some of this stuff? Was there a tangible change since May in terms of addressing the future of the ACC that you saw?
Luke, I really believe it helped us. I do. It was painful to go through. Nobody liked it, but it really started to develop this honesty and candor. Not that it hasn't been an honest group before, but more candor than anything else about, hey, here are the issues we have, or here's what we're concerned about. And I think that's healthy. I think that's healthy in any organization. And you can maybe have it at the coach level or at the AD level, but when it's at the CEO level with our presidents and chancellors, I think that has helped us come together and understand these are some of the things that we have to address. And then, as I mentioned a little bit ago, I think the frequency, Luke, of us now getting together, we meet once a week now, sometimes more. And then, if we don't have anything to go over, we can cancel the meeting, but it's on our CEO's schedule. And even throughout the summer, we've had, to me, more meetings than my first 2 summers with the league by far. I think double, even combined the first 2 years. So they're attentive, they're aware, there's lots of discussion going on. So at the end of the day, I think you turn a tough situation into a positive one.
Take our next question from the back on our right-hand side in the aisle.
Hey, Jim. Matt Baker with the Tampa Bay Times. Over here. Hey, how are you? You were talking about the patchwork of NIL state laws. What, in your mind, is kind of the practical impact of that, considering there hasn't been much enforcement of anything so far?
I think that's the disappointing part of it, Matt. And I think our league had the most visible one, and I still kind of shrug my shoulder on that. I don't quite understand that, of everything that's going on. At the end of the day, I think we have paralyzed the enforcement staff, not intentionally, but with state NIL laws. And they're not sure exactly the enforcement abilities that they have, et cetera. That's why some kind of consistent language across the country would allow our enforcement staff, to me, to be a lot more successful in doing the work that they need to do. So I think that's part of the earlier question of, the frustrations of the coaches, et cetera, that they have, and our athletic directors and even chancellors. And it causes some disruption in your own league with our 10 states, because they all look different, the laws do. So I'm hopeful we can get there. I really do. And I think we've made a ton of progress over the last 2 or 3 months. And a lot of us have almost lived in Washington, D.C. because of the frequency of meetings with both sides of the aisle. So I am cautiously optimistic that we can get something done.
Next question, we're going to stay in the back on the right-hand side.
Hi, Jim. Joe Obias. I understand the belief that they're students, not employees, but are there contingencies that you've discussed with the presidents or other commissioners in the likely event that the courts decide differently in the next couple of years?
You have to be ready for anything, Joe. You know that. This is a fluid, changing landscape. And what a student athlete and their experiences and, being able to get support and monetize their name, image, and likeness, what that looked like 10 years ago versus today, we have to be ready for almost anything. The courts have been active all the way up to the Supreme Court. So it would be naive for us to think that, hey, we can just kind of do this thing ourselves without much interference. So we'll have to continue to look at it. I know that is not the desire of the ACC presidents at all, but it, at some point could be a reality.
Next question down here right in the front on the second row.
Commissioner, with the college football playoff expanding, you mentioned the non-conference schedule. For example, Florida State, they have upcoming home-and-home games with Alabama and Georgia, 2 of the top programs in the country right now. With the playoff expanding, do you anticipate more of these home-and-homes in the future, and how can that help lift the profile of the ACC as a whole?
I think they go together. They're interconnected. And with the expanded playoff, I think you're going to see more of those kinds of games, because you can suffer a loss, and maybe even 2, and still get into a 12-team playoff. So, the unique thing about scheduling is it's done individually. So the conference office doesn't have a lot of influence on it. We've tried to set up some games like we did in Ireland, which will be great. That's a conference game. But I commend our schools that are playing difficult non-conference games. And what I'd like to see in the selection moving forward is there being, more emphasis on the games that you are playing, right? And what's the totality? What's the resume look across a 12-game schedule? Not just what you've done in your own conference, but who have you played in the non-conference schedule? So look forward to those games and many more that you've described.
We're going to take our final question right over here on the aisle.
Jim, David Teal from the Times-Dispatch in Richmond. How close are you and your fellow commissioners to finalizing the revenue distribution from the expanded playoff, and what impact will that have on what formula you eventually finalize for your success initiative?
Yeah, those also kind of go hand in hand, David. No, we don't know all the financials just yet of some of the postseason, so that's going to work into it. But I know that the group is eager to get this finished. This is not another year away or anything like that. We're going to input it next year. I think they really are interested in a short order, getting something done and structured in a way so everybody kind of knows what those financials potentially look like, not knowing all the numbers. So I would say more near term than longer term. Appreciate that. I know that I'll see a bunch of you throughout the next couple days, but let me at this time invite our partners from the ACC Network to the stage for a special announcement. Where's our ACCN family members? As they make their way up here, and with the ACC football season kicking off in 37 days, here's a quick video.
Game day in the ACC. We live for it.
What's my definition of success? Listening to what your heart says.
Play fast, play physical, play this game the way you love to play it.
It's time to take off the gloves and dominate this team. Let's go! What's my definition of success? Being brave enough to dream big. Quitting when you're told to just quit. Giving more when you got nothing left.
It's time for football in front of a packed house under the lights. And the 10, he hurdled the man. Touchdown. Oh, my. And he'll go on top. What a catch. Oh, wow. A bomb. Come for it all.
Kelsey Riggs has been part of the ACCN since it went live on August 22nd, 2019, and we're so proud she continues to be an incredible ambassador for the ACC and ACCN and ESPN. Miss Riggs, come on up here. Let's give her a nice round of applause.
Hello, hello. Let's see if I can do this. Great to be with everybody. As you mentioned, I'm Kelsey Riggs, and I know you guys probably know all of these familiar faces coming up on stage as well. Mark Packer's got the other microphone right now, part of the ACC PM crew with Taylor Tannenbaum. Then we have Eric McLean, former Clemson standout, EJ Manuel from Florida State, Eddie Royal from Virginia Tech, and the newly elected Hall of Famer, Coach Mark Richt. So we are so excited to be here with you. Yeah, that deserves a round of applause. I'm excited to be here with you, and as the commissioner mentioned, August of 2019, yeah, so 4 years ago. Math is hard. So many of us were standing up on this stage. It feels nostalgic to be back in this room. We were talking then about building the network and what we would be able to do. So we're excited to be here with another announcement. You've seen so many of us over the years on the road, and for the first time ever this year, we will be taking ACC Huddle and ACC PM on the road every single weekend for the college football season. 37 days away from that very first weekend, Labor Day weekend, and we are pumped about it. Pac, you guys were on the road with the ACC Huddle crew last year, and it's a huge opportunity to really highlight these student athletes, these games, and kick it off on Fridays.
It is, and first of all, I'll be brief, I would like to ask the esteemed media here, I would like to know if any of you actually voted for Vanderbilt last week at the SEC Media Day. Because if you did, you need to be escorted out immediately. This is a real media congregation for the next 3 days. So we look forward to being on the road. We look forward to meeting with all the coaches and players just like you guys do. And it should be fun for the next 3 days. It should be a great 23 season as well. We look forward to getting back to the college football playoff, whether it be Clemson, Florida State, or somebody else. But we look forward to being on the road and talking a little ACC football, a little Southern fried football. So, again, if you're voting Vandy like you did last week, get your mind right for the next 3 days, and we look forward to having some fun with you.
If you know any of the good tailgate spots, Pac is really good on the grill. He can come help you and feed everybody. So looking forward to that. They'll be there on Fridays and Saturdays throughout the college football season, as mentioned, every single week for the first time. Just an opportunity to really continue to highlight football and grow football and all the teams in this conference. That's just part of it, though. The commissioner mentioned 5 straight days of ACC football, which is a huge deal to have that opportunity. We're going to kick off our trip with Virginia Tech. It is our primetime game. Nothing like Lane Stadium when that inner Sandman gets rocking, and that'll be Old Dominion for the very first weekend of the college football season. EMAC, to have the opportunity to be there to cover these teams up close and personal. And it's not just a pregame or a postgame. Y'all, it's all day long. It's morning, noon, night, all throughout the day.
Well, first of all, it's awesome to be back here. 8 years ago, I stood on that podium as a student athlete, and, to see how this thing has grown and to have this awesome crew that I'm standing here with, an amazing TV partner that we work for, and just to see the continual growth of this conference is very inspiring for me. But all that we just mentioned, I mean, how can you not be jacked up as a student athlete, as a fan, as a media member, to have this type of presence every single week? I mean, I just think about it as a former player, to have that stage that we're going to have that presence at my facility, at my stadium, it just feels so big. And it is. And these student athletes deserve that. They deserve this credit and this unbelievable coverage that we're going to give them. So can't wait to be in Lane Stadium. Eddie's been there once or twice. It's going to be so much fun, and can't wait to deliver this awesome content all fall.
That's right, and so that'll be just part of our coverage for the 5 straight days of college football. We are going to blow it up. Lots more to get to with that. That is, of course, Labor Day weekend. But before that, we got some other big trips coming. We're taking our ACC summer road trip. Our football show goes on the road as well. All of us, some of the others from ACC Network will be there. EJ, we're kicking it off again this year with Florida State, going back down to Tallahassee where it is hot. I will be ready for that this year on August 7th, and we'll hit every single school. That access, I think, is so valuable, obviously, to continue to highlight the athletes and the coaches and the teams, but also for fans, because you're there as they're just weeks away from the start of the season.
Well, of course, Kelsey had to come to me about the Florida State Road Show first. Now I'm going to sound biased, but in all seriousness, I think it is a great platform for each university and each coach, each player, to have us come to their actual practice, to watch them for a full day, to walk through their facilities, and you can just sense the pride that each coach has. I remember we went to Wake Forest last year, and Coach Clausen was so gracious to take 30 minutes out of his time to walk us throughout the facility and really show us what he's building with his program. And I feel like it's like that with all 14 of our institutions. So it's very, prideful for myself as a former player, somebody who played in the ACC championship game, somebody that played throughout the ACC and chose to go to the ACC, that I had other options to go and play, but I wanted to stay in this conference. And so this is where I grew up. And to be here still covering it, I'm very extremely proud. But at the same time, this is important, like EMAC said, to give back to these student athletes and give them the platform that they deserve.
And it is different than anything else we get to do. We get so many of the players mic'd up while they're practicing. You get to get inside their heads. You get to see sometimes Eddie returning punts and trying to catch it, and you see how that goes. And obviously, great interviews with everybody here as well. So we are so excited for all that is in store for ACC football this season. Excited to be a partner and continue to grow this. Mentioned 4 years ago we were standing here. I can't wait to see where we are 4 years from now as college football, ACC football continues to grow. Commissioner, we're looking forward to it. All good? You got anything else?
Take a picture. Yeah, we're going to take a picture. If we could have Commish, you head on up there. We know we've got a photographer. I will close this up by letting everybody know that we will go ahead and flip this room and start getting our first of our 4 schools in here today for the press conference in this room. Of course, there is lunch downstairs, and then later tonight, the evening event will take place at a location called Merchant and Trade. It's just a couple block walk from here. And as Commissioner mentioned on the front end, if there is anything that we can do to help you during the next couple days, please don't hesitate to ask me, to ask our team. We're here to serve, and we appreciate all of you being here in attendance. So have a great morning, and we'll look forward to catching up with you throughout the day.